Hello, my name's Simonize and welcome to another Simonize Guide video. Today I've got your Phase 3 gearing guide for rogues in Season of Discovery. I'll talk about all the best PVE damage dealing gear you can get, some pre-raid options, and plenty of alternatives for each slot. I'll also cover what the best enchants you can get for each item are, and in this phase we can finally do head, leg, and shoulder enchants, in addition to the regular enchanter enchants that we've been getting in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Without further ado, let's start off with the helm items. And the best helm is still going to be the glowing Nero-linked cowl that we were using from last phase. This is a leatherworker only item, and I strongly recommend rogues take the leatherworking profession in this phase for access to this helmet, as well as access to the new epic crafted shoulders that we'll talk about in just a moment. Now when the Nero-linked cowl's activated ability is available, it's definitely the best, but if you have a situation where the activated effect is still on cooldown and you're going into the boss, Embrace of the Lycan is going to be a little bit better. That one comes from Zul'Farrak. You can see we have the Honor Among Thieves rune here on the helmet. Combat Potency on the helmet is also perfectly good and very strong. And we also have a 8 agility enchant. This comes from the Librum of Veracity quest that starts and ends in Burning Steppes, but to get all the parts needed for it, it'll send you to Fellwood, Ungoro Crater, and Blackrock Depths. You'll need to buy or find a Librum of Veracity to do this quest, and right now, early on in the phase, those are very expensive, but I suspect the price will go down in the coming weeks and be much more obtainable. You can see on the list of helmets, most of these have green icons, but the red icon next to Baham's Dusty Hat indicates it's an item from the raid. All the green items are accessible pre-Sunken Temple. Moving on from the helmet, let's talk about the necklace. And the necklace we had from last phase, the Nomagon Peace Officer's Torque, is really good. The upgrades available this phase, Skeeby's Pendant, a BOE World Drop, and the Bloodstained Charm of Valor from the raid are just not meaningful upgrades. You can see it's about 1 DPS to move up to the Bloodstained Charm of Valor. For the shoulders, we have a whole lot of options and one very clear winner. The Paranoia Mantle is the epic bind on pickup crafted item for this phase for leatherworkers only. If you're not a leatherworker, or you just haven't done the epic crafting quest yet, or you can't quite afford it because the items are still really expensive, again, I'd expect those to go down over time. There are a lot of other alternatives. The Clouddrift Mantle is accessible to Alliance only from the Ancient Spirit quest in Fellwood. That one's great. Otherwise, the Splint-Hide Shoulders, PvP Rank 7 Shoulders, Emerald Leather Shoulders, or our Failed Flying Experiment are all very good options, very similar in power level. Now, the Shoulders are another slot where we can now enchant them, and we couldn't before. You can get a 15 attack power enchant called the Atal Eye Signet of Might by getting a Flask of Nightmarish Mojo. This is something that's crafted by alchemists, and you take this to the northwest corner of Stranglethorn Vale to Yojamba Island. And there will be an NPC there where you just turn in the Flask of Nightmarish Mojo and you get your Atal Eye Signet of Might. No long quest chain or trouble to deal with there. For the cloaks, we have a really good pre-raid option in Black Veil Cape from Interrogator Gerston in Blackrock Depths. And the only upgrade to that is the Panther Fur Cloak, which is just 1 agility better than the Black Veil Cape, not making a huge impact on our damage output, similar to the necklace. And on the cloak, we have the same enchant as we did last phase, a +3 agility enchant requiring 2 lesser nether essences from an enchanter. For the chest armor, we've got the Blood Corrupted Tunic. This is the new set armor, and it's really good. Now, when we're talking about set item pieces like this, the numeric comparisons you see on screen are just the individual item stats and not accounting for the set bonuses. If I had 3 pieces of the insulated leather set from last phase, I wouldn't swap any of those out until I could upgrade every single slot with a new item. And for the chest, we can move up from a +2 to all stats enchant we had last phase up to a +3 all stats this phase. Technically, +4 stats might be available, but is an extremely rare high-level recipe that no one on your server might have for quite a while. For the wrist slot, we actually get an epic engineering crafted item, the Void-Powered Slayer's Vambraces. But similar to the cloak, this item is only 1 agility better than the next best option, the Forest Stalker's Bracers from Warsong Gulch Exalted. So that item alone isn't really a big reason to be engineering. The reason to be engineering is for the bombs and stuff. It shouldn't be too hard to get Warsong Gulch Exalted anymore because the weekly quest that gave you 1,000 reputation before is now changed to a daily quest. So you can do that every day, get 1,000 reputation with your Warsong Gulch faction, and it shouldn't be long before you can get Exalted and get these super good Forest Stalker Bracers. I strongly recommend you do that. For the gloves, we have a huge amount of options, and the best option is Gloves of the Pathfinder, which comes from the Winterfall activity quest in Winterspring, and we have a really close alternative in Nightfall Gloves, which comes from the Blackrock Depths quest, Disharmony of Fire for the Horde, or Incendious for the Alliance. Now, there are quite a few good options here, but let's give a special mention to the Gloves of Holy Might. The -4 DPS you see here is against a non-undead target, but these have bonus attack power against undead. So whenever you're fighting something that's undead, these shoot up to the top of the list and should definitely be used. I would use them on the Jamal the Prophet and Ogam the Wretched boss. For the belt, we're looking for the Girdle of Bestial Fury. That drops from the Ring of Law event in Blackrock Depths. This one can be really hard to get because when you do the Ring of Law event, you get a random boss spawn that then drops a random item. So it's multiple layers of RNG to see the item you actually want. For the legs, we have the set item again. We'll be using 3 pieces of the Blood Corrupted set. It's pretty good. Comes from the Atal Eye Blood icon. That's the token you get, and you can turn in the token either within the raid right near the start, or there's a token turn-in vendor on Yojamba Island in northwestern corner of Stranglethorn Vale. The feet are the same thing, Blood Corrupted boots. I would recommend having a movement speed enchant on your boots at all times to move around faster. It's really important. But the Defiler's leather boots or Highlander's leather boots, they have move speed baked into the boot. So if you're using those particular boots, I'd recommend getting a +5, or if you can afford it, +7 agility enchant on those boots. For the rings, your best one is going to be Drakeclaw Band of the Berserker, but it's not that much different than the Band of the Wilds or the Blackstone Ring. The Drakeclaw Band and the Band of the Wilds has 1% chance to hit with all spells and attacks, so that's helping both your physical attacks and your spell attacks, which counts for your poisons. The Blackstone Ring only has physical hit chance, so it's helping your physical attacks, but not your poisons. 5% spell hit chance is all that your poisons will benefit from, but your physical attacks can benefit from all the way up to like 25 or 26% physical hit chance, a completely unreachable number. I would not worry at all about getting any particular amount of hit rating on your gear. It's going to be there on a lot of pieces, and it's not a big deal if you're a little bit below any of these arbitrary caps. For the trinkets, I'm going to have to explain a bit of a situation. Right now, the Darkmoon card Sandstorm from the Dunes deck and the Darkmoon card Decay from the Plagues deck are looking very, very strong. But players have only been able to get them for the past 2 days, and they've been continually changed, modified, nerfed, and Decay has even been buffed a little bit in that short time. Currently, they are both looking like far and away the strongest trinkets available this phase. I suspect they will remain that way, but I don't know exactly how much better they are than our other alternatives. And if they do get substantially buffed or nerfed in the future that really changes my idea that they're the best trinket available, I'll post that in the pinned comment below, and if there have been no changes, the comment will just say no changes. So look down there if you're curious about any updates on the Darkmoon card situation. Outside of the Darkmoon cards, the next best option is a Horde-only trinket called Rune of the Guard Captain. This comes from the job opening Guard Captain of Reventusk Village quest in Hinterlands. It's quite a task to kill 80 elite trolls in Jintha Allure, but there will be plenty of people trying to do it because the trinket is very good. The rest of the trinkets are accessible to both factions. The Breath of the Beast comes from 12 Wild Offerings. The vendor for that unlocks after you complete the Wild Gods quest chain that gives you your Combat Potency rune. And behind that, we have trinkets from the previous phases, Gyromatic Experiment 420B and Avenger's Void Pearl. Now, the Roar of the Guardian trinket is an activated trinket with a temporary bonus and a cooldown. It comes from getting exalted with the Emerald Wardens faction associated with the Nightmare Incursions. And as it is with all passive benefits versus active benefits, what's going to determine what's better is how long you're in a boss encounter for. And roughly, if it's going to be 90 seconds or less, Roar of the Guardian is going to start to pull slightly ahead of Breath of the Beast. For the ranged weapons, Precisely Calibrated Boomstick with 14 agility is the clear winner. This is a BOE World Drop Epic, which means there's no particular place you go to intentionally farm this. You should try to farm some gold and see if you can find one on the auction house cheap enough or trade with another player. In fact, a lot of the good ranged options are BOE world drops this phase, with Gutbuster and Skull Splitting Crossbow coming in next. Stinging Longbow from the Sunken Temple raid is another good option, and Falco's Sting from Nomergon is only 6 DPS behind the best in slot Precisely Calibrated Boomstick, so evaluate for yourself if the gold cost of the boomstick is really worth that upgrade to you. Finally, we get to the most exciting part, the weapons. And here we have our main hand weapons. we're definitely going to be using Mutilate. It is still by far the best combo point builder, and that forces us into using double daggers. And the best dagger we can get is the Degraded Dire Nail, which drops from Shade of Aranicus in the Sunken Temple. As a pre-raid option, I strongly suggest, even if you really don't like PvP, to get the Gurubashi Backstabber for 25 silver massacre coins from the level 50 Blood Moon event in Stranglethorn Vale. It's really strong, much stronger than your other alternatives, and is going to be a meaningful upgrade compared to using, say, Scout's Blade or Barman Shanker. For the enchant, we have a 15 agility enchant. This is by far the best enchant, but it is extremely expensive because it requires many very high level materials like Essence of Air, Large Brilliant Shard, and Greater Eternal Essence. If you can't afford a 15 agility enchant, or you don't have an item that you think is worth putting that on yet, go for either Fiery Weapon or +4 weapon damage as alternatives. Those are both very similar in power level. Personally, I would favor Fiery Weapon. For the offhand, we have a little bit of nuance. This offhand list is if you're running Honor Among Thieves Helm Rune. For an Honor Among Thieves setup, Degraded Dire Nail number 2, you can dual wield these, is going to be your best option. If you can't get that yet, Shadowblade, Julie's Dagger, and Hookfang Shanker are your next 3 best options for the offhand. For the enchant options on the offhand, it's pretty much the same, with 15 agility being the best but very expensive, Fiery Weapon and +4 weapon damage being alternatives. Now, if you were to choose to use a combat potency setup, which is perfectly good and viable, your offhand weapon selection is going to look very different. It's going to have a strong emphasis on having a faster weapon, because a faster weapon means more combat potency procs, more energy, and get to use more abilities. So Julie's Dagger, BOE World Drop, with that super fast 1.3 speed, shoots to the top of the list. You can see here the combat potency comparisons on the left and the Honor Among Thieves comparisons on the right for the same 9 offhand weapons. And you can see Julie's Dagger, Shadowblade, Hookfang, and D-Base Stealth Blade, some of the fastest items on the list. Definitely on top on the left for combat potency, but the slower weapons like Degraded Dire Nail and Gurubashi Backstabber, much more viable on the right with Honor Among Thieves rune. And with that, that covers it. That's the end of the Phase 3 gearing guide for you. If you want to see 60 upgrades links for full best in slot or pre-raid best in slot, I have those in the video description. And if you want to see the spreadsheet that I used to create all of these numeric comparisons, that's available on my Discord, totally free of charge, not paywalled, and the link to that is also in the video description if you want to see that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you figure out what gear you want to be prioritizing on your rogue. I hope you're having fun in Season of Discovery, and I hope you're having a great day.